What is the best thing we can do for airflow? The first thing we really need to do in all of our building spaces is to increase the ventilation rate. That's measured in the air changes per hour. Now, there's limits to what we can do, but more fresh air reduces the chance of you being exposed to a virus that was exhaled by somebody else. Another thing we want to do is use filters. Filters will take small particles like drops out of an airflow. So if there's air blowing around with little drops of COVID-19 in it, a filter like a MERV13 filter, MERV means minimum efficiency reporting value, a MERV13 filter will remove most of the droplets if air is being recirculated in a building. Everyone should look into the possibility of adding a device to supplement the ventilation system in places where there's a really high source of viruses in large concentrations of people, especially in rooms where there's poor ventilation. So what's the biggest challenge if we want to retrofit the airflow in all of these buildings where people are already working? The big problem is that some heating systems don't actually deliver any air at all. They're based on steam or baseboard heating, and so the ventilation rates in a lot of older systems is very low. So we can't just increase the airflow because they're not forced air systems. These are systems that would do well to have supplementary systems which improve the rate of removal of viruses in the air. Some systems must be completely resigned if the recycled air ratio is going to be changed. They're often set up to economize, that's reuse air that's already been heated once by bringing it through a filter. If we wanted to remove that recycling of air that was breathed out by people already in the system, we might not have enough heating designed in our system. So it's very difficult to just go and change that recycling rate. Another thing to keep in mind is that in the air handlers, in these places in the buildings you can't see, the filters do not lend themselves to be upgrading easily because different filters are different sizes. So if you go back and decide you're going to improve the filtration, you might not have a device that can hold a higher MERV filter. So this would mean some costs if you wanted to retrofit, and there could be other design issues that are affected by changing the filter, like you might need a more powerful fan. So these things make it difficult to just go in and make a quick fix change. If we want to increase the air changes per hour, which is the ventilation rate, this could mess up how the entire building is already designed. The whole place has been balanced and designed as one, so you can't just go in and change one of these parameters and have the rest of the building behave like it normally does. This is why it is more advantageous to have a system that doesn't disturb the primary airflow that's run by the HVAC system. So what's best about the Pura Air system? The most important thing in my mind is its ability to get very high concentrated sources of aerosols at source. So if you're in a place like a bathroom or a dentist's office or somewhere really close to somebody's mouth, maybe where you're intubating a patient in a hospital, that's where most of your danger is arising in the source. Instead of trying to boil the ocean and get the particles out of all of the air, it makes sense to try to do most of the work in the place where most of your aerosol is being generated. So you want to get the evacuation source very close to the source. The Pura Air system does that. It's a low noise system, which is quite good for retrofitting. You don't want a system that'll come in and make it difficult to do what you were doing previously in the space because of noise. And importantly, it doesn't push air into the HVAC return system. It's creating its own loop. So air comes into its filtration and UV system and goes right back out where it came from. Therefore, it doesn't unbalance the distribution of air that was already being handled by the HVAC system. One thing we do know, and science is very definite about in research in HVAC, that the two most effective ways to remove viruses out of air streams are filters and ultraviolet light. And this is a device that uses that. So it's proven, it's not snakeskin oil, it's a proven technology, and it is endorsed by most of the HVAC researchers who approve ways of getting virus-laden particles out of airstreams. Another thing is that the design of the UV box, where the UV light is inactivating and killing those COVID viruses, it's large, and there's a very, I would say, quite a large UV source in there compared to most systems. So the UV disinfector is large and it's powerful. So the question is, what makes this COVID-19 outbreak and this pandemic so tricky for HVAC engineers and people in general? I think the real problem is we can't see it. And we have this threat that's out there, and we never know whether it's near us or whether we should be worried or whether we're in a safe moment. So a precautionary approach is the best approach. People generally don't like that. They want to be certain something is there or it's not there. The other thing that makes it tricky is the incubation time inside the human body is fairly long, so people can catch it and spend a while spreading it around, and that's quite a problem. And there are also quite a number of people who get the virus and don't show symptoms. So there's lots of people moving around out there who are spreading this thing, and people don't know about it. And so at the same time, the death rate or the morbidity rate is quite low for the entire population. So the risk to a single individual is quite low. So it's quite easy for somebody to make that choice. Well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to take the risks for myself. It's my life. I'll do what I want. Unfortunately, that isn't a good strategy for reducing the societal risk, because individuals have to think of how they interact in the entire society as opposed to just their own freedom, for example. So people say, well, I just want to take my chances. They're also endangering other people when they decide not to take precautions, and that's unfortunate.